This is Boob Tube Boys. I'm Brian Vaughn. I'm joined by Van Lee.
Yep.
And Spencer Hendricks.
That's me.
Yep.
And that was Van.
Yep.
This is a television podcast where we're all friends.
I'm saving all of my words for when we start talking about what we're talking
about.
That's good.
Conserve your energy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to keep the suspense mounting any longer. We're talking about Street Hawk. It's a television show from 1985 and only 1985. The first word that pops in your mind about Street Hawk, Spencer, go.
Cool.
Van?
Let's go with one word, right?
Yeah.
Best thing I've ever seen.
Okay.
Hyphenated, yeah.
You know what? In the Street Hawk method of excess, that works. You stuffed so many words in there that I'm counting it as one. This episode is Season 1, Episode 5, Dog Eat Dog. It aired in February of 1985.
I wasn't even born yet.
No, Spencer and I narrowly were. The show only ran for one season, as I alluded to, only for 14 episodes for ABC in 1985. So it did okay in the ratings, but back then there was a pretty high standard to be pushed into further seasons, and there were a million shows kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of assumed that this one was canceled or whatever it may be because of maybe budgetary reasons or something like that. Was it just strictly that it just didn't do amazing? It was just okay?
According to Rex Smith, the actor
star
who plays Jesse Mach / Street Hawk, one of the problems was the time slot it was given, and
it was like 10:30.
According to him, the time slot was like the big factor. I would imagine redundancy was another.
Yeah,
because
there were probably other problems.
Right. Street Hawk started in 1985. It was supposed to actually start in the fall of 84, but was preempted until 1985. So already bad sign that it didn't get the fall start. That's usually when a hit show starts to take off.
That's true, because if you think about that, it's going into the winter. When I would watch years ago television like a television viewer, it was always the winter was when the new season started, and you started to get tired of the show by the time summer was creeping up. And if there ever was a show that debuted post-Christmas, it just didn't feel like a new show.
Right, and they were usually
wrong.
half-season shows, kind of like this one.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't feel as substantial, and if they took off, they would be renewed and premiere with a new season when? In the fucking fall, when important television happens.
How many episodes did you say? 14?
Only 14 episodes.
That's a baker's dozen.
I can't help but wish that they had tried a daytime slot. Just like
Yeah.
the
Oprah.
soap opera people and called it Day Hawk. Would have worked.
Street Hawk of our lives. The creators of the show, Paul Bellis, Robert Wolterstorff, and Bruce Lansbury.
Hold on, how many names did you just say?
Like 40, but only 3.
Okay.
Bruce Lansbury, the last one I mentioned, he produced a lot of Mission Impossible episodes.
Huh.
But he was also a producer on Knight Rider, and he was kind of the guy responsible for the concept of Street Hawk, so...
Took a little too much from it, maybe.
Maybe so.
I really do think that when they thought about making this show, it was just like, hey, do you remember how David Hasselhoff had that car? Motorcycle. That's the pitch for the show. And of course, it's the 80s, so some ad executive goes, yeah, great idea. Let's do it.
We can do that better.
We're going to run through all of the fancy vehicles someone could have that are smart vehicles.
They have smart cars now, but do they have smart motorcycles? Like a touchscreen
No,
on your
motorcycles
motorcycle?
are supposed to stay stupid. You don't advance a motorcycle. Good where it was at.
What is Street Hawk? Beyond a Way of Life. Well, it's about a desk-bound police officer who secretly fights crime because he's a test pilot for Street Hawk, which is a combat motorcycle. That's the general premise we're dealing with here. There are really only 4 people in this cast who are recurring characters. Rex Smith, who I mentioned, he plays Jesse / Street Hawk. He was in Baywatch.
How many episodes?
Just 1, I believe.
Okay, that's about
More
it.
importantly, he was also in Caroline in the City, which is the mark of a true actor of the 1990s.
Of course.
Richard Venture is Jesse's boss at the police store. Lieutenant Commander Leo Altabelli, he is not nice and he doesn't like any ideas.
And he's just harried all the time.
Yeah.
You know, just like a good police colonel. What did you say his rank was?
Lieutenant
Okay.
Commander?
Wait, that's not even that good, right?
I don't know.
I know. Oh, never mind. None of us
Yeah,
know.
I know. We should prepare a quiz for one another on that subject one time. None of us know
Military rank.
anything about it.
Lieutenant.
That's one of my favorite ones. It sounds made up. Yeah, where's the right tenant? Her. Joe Regal Buto plays Norm Tuttle. He's Frank from Murphy Brown. He was also in 3 episodes of Magnum P.I., and you know what? He seems like a charming, affable man.
Yeah.
Like him. He did a great job in the show, I thought.
He's got a good TV face for that side supporting character type.
And I didn't remember it from Murphy Brown until I looked it up and saw it. And then I went, oh, of course.
Makes sense.
Because as a kid, I watched a lot of Murphy Brown. I don't know why.
I felt like I'd seen him before, but I didn't watch much Murphy Brown or anything. He looked familiar to me in a comforting way.
I think he was like a weatherman on Murphy Brown because it was a news studio or something, I think.
I think it might have been a newspaper, but
Maybe
it might
that's
have been
what
a
it was.
news studio. I had a passing interest in Murphy Brown as a child as well. I don't remember details, but I totally watched a few episodes. Jeannie Wilson plays Rachel Adams, not Rachel McAdams, who is a real-life person and also an actor. She was mostly done acting after the 80s, but was in 33 episodes of whatever Simon and Simon is. I really don't know. That's our main cast. I learned a bit more about them by watching something called Street Hawk, Making of a Legend. That was a little featurette added onto the 2010 DVD release of Street Hawk that was kind of independently funded. This has never been on home video.
Oh, so they've never released it on DVD or anything?
No, I think maybe the pilot was on VHS or something.
That documentary thing or whatever, how long is that?
It's only 40 minutes long.
Okay, I watched like the first 15 and it was
So
great.
it's like another episode length, basically.
Basically so. And I did watch the whole thing. Rex Smith comes across a bit arrogant.
Huh.
And like he thinks Street Hawk was a big deal. He refers to himself as a lot of things, including pop star and teen idol, because
He had like a #1 hit in the 80s or something?
but not really.
Yeah, it was like one song. It was a poppy song that someone else wrote.
Right. He was kind of dancing around fame in the 80s, but he didn't quite ascend the heights I think he could have. Because in the 80s, you didn't have to act.
True.
Most of the action stars couldn't, in fact. As I mentioned, though, Joe Regal Bootu, he comes across great in this little featurette.
Yeah, he's funny.
He has just the right amount of respect/understanding of the material. He's not talking down to us about Street Hawk as if it was something not to have done, but he's also not celebrating it as a work of art that should have never been canceled. He has a fun attitude about everything.
Well, and there's a bit of a cult following around the show, apparently, and I feel like Joe Regal Bootu understands cult followings and the camp and the stuff like that. I think the Rex Smith guy kind of has a little bit in the back of his head, like, of course they love it. They saw it. If anyone would just have watched this, it would be the best show on television. He's just so confident in himself.
He doesn't understand that there is a bit of ironic interest in Street Hawk, whereas I really think Regal Bootu does get that. Van, you mentioned there's been a bit of a development where there's a cult following around Street Hawk. Speaking of that, one of those cult members might be friend and fan of the show, Johnny Radical, who helped me watch these episodes, helped us obtain them, and suggested this at one point.
I should have said radical when you had the one-word description of the show instead of cool. I should have gone with radical, and you could have had cool, Van.
Let's back up and redo it.
Okay, right now. Just say the words.
Radical.
Great. Oh, fuck, I messed it up.
God, you're always messing it up.
And I couldn't even get radical out, seriously, because it's such a dumb word. But in the 80s, I think it was more the norm.
It was in the top 10 of words.
I think you had to start and end every sentence with radical in the 80s.
It was considered tubular to say it in the 80s. A few famous guest stars did appear in Street Hawk.
But you told us last time that there weren't any.
Why
Yeah.
would you say that?
I lied. Cold-blooded lie. George Clooney was in an episode.
What? How?
It
What
was
is he-
his first role
I guess in
on
85,
screen,
yeah, okay.
or one of his first roles. It was conflicting whether it was first or second.
It was either ER or this.
Dennis Franz was in an episode. I watched it. It was hilarious.
Huh.
Dennis Franz has a cool Jersey accent in it, and he is 41 at the time. Looks like he always looks.
Yeah.
You
I
have
can
his
see
butt
it.
out?
No, butt never comes out, which, I mean, I was ready for it.
We all were. America was ready for it.
Christopher Lloyd. He's a villain in a Street Hawk episode.
Oh, good.
So some money was behind the show. It just didn't pan out.
Another thing that we can kind of see there was some money in here was when they randomly will blast a super popular song from the time period
Yes.
that could not have been cheap.
That I
No.
can't tell if it's the original singer, like redoing it, or if they're having a cover of it.
It
There's
sounded
two
like the real,
instances.
genuine
Mhm.
article in
Mhm.
these episodes.
The pop songs in Street Hawk are legit. They
Yeah.
are the real versions.
and that
they
can't
were
be
paid
cheap.
for.
But you know what? I buy it because remember in Knight Rider, we had Cruel, Cruel Summer. We had all these hit 80s songs. So I think it was probably more affordable.
In the short documentary, Rex Smith claims, for what it's worth, that each episode was cost around $1 million,
Man.
which at the time was very hefty.
That'd be like $7 million now. Holy cow.
Right. Considering music rights and everything, that would make sense.
Mhm.
Those are really expensive. And I think part of the logic behind that is we want to make a big splash. We want people to know this is a legitimate show where a man is attached to a motorcycle.
I will say, when they hit you with some of those big soundtracks, my eyes did widen. I was like, how the fuck did they pull that
I
off?
know,
Yeah.
like Street Hawk. I didn't know you could afford
So
this.
I guess mission accomplished, because when I heard it, I was impressed.
Street Hawk, I didn't know you could afford to take me to this restaurant. This is the nicest one in town.
I can get anything I want on the menu and an appetizer.
Street Hawk took me to a restaurant like that and put a napkin over the prices and said, don't worry about this. I got it.
But for this analogy, if Street Hawk really were super rich,
Right.
they would take you to a restaurant where they don't have the prices on the menu. But Street Hawk's still Street Hawk, right?
Yeah.
So the prices are there, but they're not going to let
There's
you
a
see
little
it.
bit of a con going on for sure with Street Hawk.
Well, Street Hawk wants you to know that there is something behind the curtain. So he chooses a place with a menu with prices on it to know that they're so expensive you can't see them.
Street Hawk.
Dog Eat Dog, the first of our 2 Street Hawk adventures. What's that about? Jesse attempts to convince a rock star to appear in a public service announcement, but, becomes involved in her ex-boyfriend's murder.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is about. Let's talk about it.
I was immediately confused why the police department was responsible for obtaining the funds for this PR commercial for public safety or whatever. Seems like not a police job.
Well, I guess the PSA is for the police department, which I don't know why.
That seems weird.
I guess that money would come from them to do PSAs for schools, like a drug, dare, like that kind of shit. But I get what you're going with.
It just seemed like an odd job for a cop.
It almost seems more of like an education matter than a policing matter.
Well, I guess didn't they send Jesse Mach to public relations, basically? When
Yeah,
he
he's
shot?
got like I get maybe that's supposed to be kind of like how far he's fallen from his injury days where he has to do commercials now. And I just not something I think of as any kind of cop duty.
Did he get shot? What happened to his leg?
Who knows? He's injured, though. He can't use it.
But I have a lot of questions on that. He can clearly use his leg. He's running around, jumping on that motorcycle. So
They fix
what?
it. They
So-
fix it.
Fix it so he can be Nighthawk.
Norman fixes it.
So they were like, they saw this guy, this Jesse Mach. It's because of the last name. They saw that and said, okay, we have to go with him. But throwing that outside, they looked at this man who looks like the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and said, of the 8 billion people in the world, that's the one for Street Hawk. We don't care that he has a broken leg. We'll fix it.
They
And put him on
they
Street
saw
Hawk.
potential in him for sure.
They couldn't just find someone else without a broken
No,
leg
he's
and
the
Street
best.
Hawk them.
He's the best Street Hawk.
You've seen 2 episodes of Street Hawk. What makes that man the best at anything?
I'm just more convinced in his physical capabilities than you are.
I mean, he's in shape.
Yeah, he is. Like, I was surprised when I saw him running. I was like, wow, okay, that guy actually did work out.
Sure. He's just like a fit goober.
I think everyone in the 80s looked like that, though.
Okay, yeah.
If anyone's wondering, what exactly are these guys talking about?
And they are.
And they are. Well, here's the thing.
This is Jesse Mach, an ex-motorcycle cop injured in the line of duty. Now a police troubleshooter. He's been recruited for a top-secret government mission to ride Street Hawk, an all-terrain attack motorcycle designed to fight urban crime, capable of incredible speeds up to 300 miles an hour and immense firepower. Only one man, Federal Agent Norman Tuttle, knows Jesse Mach's true identity. The man, the machine, Street Hawk.
So Norman Tuttle has this secret government project called Project Street Hawk.
Uh-huh.
He gets Jesse to do it only because the guy above Norman convinces him.
Kirby. Because we heard his name in one of the episodes.
Yes, Kirby is Norman's boss on Project Street Hawk.
Big pink ball.
Yes.
Can eat just about anything.
He's very old. Norman, though, he's the brains behind the operation. He
Sure.
created the combat motorcycle.
And he's very attached to it.
Loves it. And he grows to love Jesse as well, but at first the idea is he doesn't like Jesse because he's a hothead. However, part of being Street Hawk is Jesse gets a top secret surgery that fixes his injuries.
That makes sense.
But the police don't know that. They still think he's a PR guy who can't do anything other than work a desk job.
Okay, so they still think that he's injured or whatever.
That's his Bruce Wayne version of himself.
Right.
It's like he's got to be a hobbled, injured guy.
And just like bats, hawks fly. Batman, Street Hawk, pretty similar.
What you need to do is go visit Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911 because he'll fix your knee in Batman Dark Knight Rises, and then you're good to go, and you get your back broken by Bane.
Okay.
I hope Street Hawk never encounters Bane.
That would not be, well, I don't know who it would be worse for. Somebody's going to get shot with a weird laser. Somebody's going to get their back broken.
Well, you could use that 300 miles an hour speed to get away. From Bane. Yeah, you wouldn't want to actually fight him on Street Hawk. I keep wanting to call it Night Hawk, but it's Street Hawk.
You're too fast for me, Street Hawk. The intro to Street Hawk rules.
Well, first off, there's technically 2 intros. There's
the one we just heard.
There's that, but that comes after the first intro, which is the actors and the cool synth music.
The first intro has an unknown man kind of going through neon fog and mounting a super motorcycle. That's what happens there. I didn't bring it up first because we were already kind of on the subject of who Jesse was, why he was in this position. But this actually does precede the show's premise explanation.
The Renegade thing.
Yes, which is what I'll always think of that as.
What you have to do is anytime you have a motorcycle show, be it a Street Hawk, which goes 300 miles an hour, or Renegade, which just has like Harley motorcycles, you have to explain your show in the intro.
I like your theory that it's only motorcycle shows that
not
do
a time. It's not a product of the time.
No,
it's if you made a motorcycle show now, you have to do
correct.
This intro has a song by Tangerine Dream that rules also.
Okay, so while we're on that, I think we compared the Magnum PI theme song and the Knight Rider song. You both preferred Knight Rider. I preferred Magnum. With those 3 now, including this one, what's your pantheon? How does it go?
I can already tell you guys how it's going to go, which is Brian's going to say that Street Hawk is now the crown. He's got the
number 1.
He's wearing the title belt. I don't think it can dethrone Knight Rider for me. Even when you said it right now, I'm hearing in my head, and I'm not really present anymore because in my head is going da 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 da, and I'm gone. And that's where I want to be. You can't take Knight Rider's song away from me with this. As good as it is, you can't do it. And I think you're going to go that direction, like Brian's direction.
The problem is I don't like the Magnum PI song that much more than the Knight Rider song that I could catapult Magnum over this thing. It's a whole process going on in his head.
Thinking about it.
I'm going to do it, though. I'm going to say this song's number 1,
I knew
then
it.
Magnum, then Knight Rider.
Well. It's complicated, as you both have suggested. Knight Rider's holding number 1 for me.
Oh,
okay.
There's a reason, though. It fits the show better. My
Okay.
association with the show and the song does kind of matter when it comes to like what I'm thinking of with a theme song. This song I do really like, but my real favorite part is when that lead part really kicks in and the melody starts going. Just, it's so great, but that's also pretty far in, and I want the song to do what I want it to do right away to a degree. Also, Street Hawk doesn't really earn such a futuristic sounding song in a way. Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack for Thief, a real movie.
Oh, they did
The
Thief?
Michael Mann movie, yeah.
Okay.
One of you do the mouth melody to jog my memory on the Magnum PI one again.
Let's see. It was... Dun, 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 dun,
Okay,
dun,
it's there.
dun,
Yeah,
dun,
you
dun,
did it.
dun,
You
okay.
put
It's
it
a
in
real
there.
swashbuckler.
And it's upbeat, I think, is what really gets me, where both the synth songs are more, minor key, get you in the mood slowly kind of things.
What
Whereas
kind
Magnum,
of mood? To
The
ride
fucking
a,
mood.
Ride a power motorcycle?
To fuck a power motorcycle, Brian.
Or be fucked by one?
300 miles of fucking. Wait, no, that's a distance. What am I, Han Solo? 300 miles per hour of fucking.
Of fucking, whatever that means.
I don't know.
That's also what I call my, when I go out and do a dick venture. Is Richard Venture.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dick
yeah.
Venture.
that works.
I guess that would be what his name shortens down to.
Bro, I'm getting horny. I'm going to go do a dick venture.
Well, does that mean you're going to be like a grumpy Gramps policeman?
Yeah, well, fucking.
Nobody gets more ass than Dick Venture. Street Hawk starts out on a music video set this time. Jesse shows up, and he's there on the set to talk to Deborah Shane, one of the hottest music stars of 1985, and it's because he wants her to participate in the aforementioned public service announcement to keep kids off drugs. We see the whole music video here. It's amazing. But it feels dated even for 1985 and kind of out of touch, like the way the song sounds. This is the sort of stuff in-network shows in the 80s. Like they'd be a couple years back. There was no internet to keep up on the trends.
It's just 80s Pat Benatar light is kind of the vibe I got from this. All of those 80s music videos where there's fog and there's hairy, sweaty, shirtless men.
BDSM gentlemen.
And just like stuff occurring that doesn't really make sense.
Caged leather women. But mainly fog and neon colors. And I think the Thriller video was a bit of an inspiration for what we see here, because there's a graveyard fog thing going on.
My question at this point when I was watching the episode was, is this going to be the only music video I get to watch being shot?
You probably thought, I hope the episode is bookended by music video shoots.
You know what? I was not disappointed. What is the story of this music video?
There's a woman who is a singer,
Uh-huh.
and she's being attacked
By leather daddies.
half-nude men while half-nude women are caged. I don't get what you're not getting.
Okay, fair enough. And in fact, Jesse Mach watching this nods and with a smile on his face, he's like, yes, this is doing it. This
Jesse
is what should
really
be happening.
likes this song, and he likes what he's saying. And I kind of like the song.
It was interesting.
It's kind of catchy in its own way, although it's very 80s and also did remind me of Meatloaf. The video director at one point yells, "Cut, he's done." And I thought he was going to be an asshole because he looks kind of like he is an asshole, but he isn't. He tells Debbie, something's just off. I don't know. It's on me. I'm a good man. Debbie, take a break. Take all the time you need. So everybody goes on break. That's Jesse's opening to ask the big question. Deborah says, I'm not doing a PSA because ACAB, but I will write a check. But again, nothing about cops. I don't like them. I'll reveal why later in one of the many exposition dumps that happen in Street Hawk.
And you know what? Instantly, I'm like, okay, this is a good person.
Musician, likes fog, doesn't like cops. Out in the parking lot, outside of where the music video is being shot, we see a video production truck, and there's a couple of 80s men sitting inside that trailer talking about stuff over drinks. One of them is a normal type middle-aged man. His name is Neil. He's the head of RJ Records. You guys know all about RJ Records.
One of the biggest companies.
What's your
exists.
favorite album that RJ Records put out, Spencer?
Owl Party.
Behind the Moonlight by Owl City.
The competing Owl City rivals.
It was every Owl band in the 80s just had to go at one another.
There were so many.
RJ Records was actually really big on any bird-sounding type band.
That's kind of the market they cornered.
Robin
signed-
J, two birds, RJ.
They signed Falco because it was so close to Falcon.
Yeah.
This is all coming together perfectly.
You think they were disappointed with that signing?
I think it was a bird brain scheme.
Well, at least we got Rock Me Amadeus out of it.
And it was around the time of that Amadeus movie, and it was really popular. What a decade for Amadeus, the 1980s. I think about that pretty regularly, ever since I had to watch Amadeus in music class in middle school, which I think it was probably a pretty good movie.
I think it is very good. It's very highly regarded, but I don't remember anything
won a lot
about
of
it.
awards.
Salieri, is that right? He's not real, it turns out.
Well, you know what turns out is real?
Mm-hmm.
Street Hawk.
Oh.
Neil, the guy from RJ Records, would really like to just eat his BLT. But this other guy, his name is Virgil, he is gross.
He says, moited your partner?
Right, that gives you an idea of who Virgil is, which he's a bit of a, no nice way to say, he's a sleazebag in a white jacket with slicked back hair.
Looks like a bad version of Michael Madsen.
Right, and kind of an ineffective mobster. Virgil's trying to blackmail Neil. He says, I'll go to the police because I have a tape of you killing your former partner, but you're going to have to give me $5 million for me to not do that. And that's half the gross of RJ Records, you guys. Virgil's quick to remind Neil, though, that's better than nothing at all. Deborah, she's exiting her own trailer, but she can't get a moment of peace because Jesse is trailing her like a puppy all the way to catering, talking to her about how good cops are and why she should do this PSA thing.
And, you know, stalking a pop diva outside of her trailer on the studio, that's not going to get you tackled by several bodyguards at any point. And by the way, the trailer she comes out of has a sticker on the back and it says Star Wagons in the Star Wars font, except they spell wagons with 2 G's.
I wonder if that was a real brand of production trailer at that time.
The other option then would be that somebody thought it would be a funny joke to put in the background.
Someone on the Street Hawk crew,
Someone's like, well, you know how
we got to name this thing.
Shyamalan will put the things in the background that you're supposed to catch on the third viewing that tell you tricks to the story. Could be that.
I like to believe that a show like Street Hawk would do that. I don't really think that's the case, though.
That Street Hawk is this dense, interwoven universe of
all kinds of
clues.
little Easter eggs to find in Street Hawk.
Deborah sits down because she would like to eat in between her takes or whatever of this music video.
Is that what she's gonna do with what she puts on that plate? Is eat?
And what she gets is a plate of romaine lettuce and nothing else.
No dressing or
Nothing.
anything.
Not even like a crouton, just romaine lettuce.
The demands on pop stars, you wouldn't believe it.
And by the way, this romaine lettuce has just been sitting in the sun all day.
It looks like it too.
It's super wilted. Jesse, for his part, he has real food. He puts chips on his eyeballs or something and says he's or Little Orphan Annie or Mickey Mouse.
Which kind of works. She kind of laughs a little bit when he does that.
Well,
Right.
she is smitten with him right out of the gate. She's kind of like, oh, look at this hunk. For some reason, I
He's
I
pretty
don't
hot.
buy the hunk
Okay,
business.
now let's get into that. Everybody listening knows all about Jesse. He's ripped. You know, he's
you
in
can't
really
really
good
tell
shape.
yet.
He's
but
ripped, but he's
yes.
small.
He seems smallish, but my big thing, I have two big things. His speaking voice and his speech pattern are not the speech patterns of a cool motorcycle man.
No,
No.
not at all.
This is the 1980s. I would like Jesse to have a mustache. Is that so much to ask?
He does this thing where he's not an actor. I don't know if he's gotten better
No.
since, but
And this is his first acting role.
it makes sense. And I get it, and awesome for you, but I'm going to make fun of you because you're bad.
And you should, because he seems to think he was pretty good at
He
it.
does. Well, he'll do this thing where his character will have emotion 1, and then a story beat will happen, and he's supposed to switch to emotion 2. And he does it just like that. It's just a very blunt way.
It's Jekyll and Hyde.
It really is. It's like, hey, how are you? I will kill you. It's like the snap of the finger and then go right back to it. It's bizarre.
Casual Jesse, Rex Smith plays him almost as just kind of a doofy guy. And
Like a dork.
It's not good, but it's more passable. But as you said, Van, whenever Jesse is supposed to be angry, it's unwatchable. It's so dumb.
Do you think he's a hunk then, Spencer?
I don't know what else you think he's supposed to be doing on screen. Since we know he's not an actor, we know that without any doubt. He's eye candy. That's what else is he there for? He's there because the women want him. I didn't see it really at first, but the more I looked at it, I was like, yeah, you know,
He
I
really
bet-
got to you.
I bet in the 80s, I bet women wanted that guy.
Okay.
Jesse, he's banking on that too. He uses this little moment to ask both for the PSA to be recorded with Deborah and for her to go on a date with him. Really bold to go beyond even the professional ask.
Well, this is what, the 80s, so of course we're not in the sexual harassment enlightenment
Yeah, you didn't
era.
have to ask. Then
Yeah.
you could tell him.
You could just do whatever you wanted.
We're also apparently not in the pop stars having security era. Deborah says no to all of this. No, I don't like police. You need to go away. Besides, I'm still in a relationship and it's really bad and I need to get out of it.
I love that she immediately recognizes that. And I mean this truthfully, because oftentimes, even in what happens in this story, they would start the woman off being still smitten with the man. So it's good that she recognizes this sucks.
The
I wanna
woman
be
would
out of
often be in denial still in a
Mm.
show like this. Actually, Deborah has a couple of traits that do seem rather advanced for a one-off character in a stupid show.
How dare you?
It is really perfect, though, how instantly we get the proof of her shitty relationship, which is like, I'm in a bad relationship I need to get out of. And we get the evidence.
Deborah saying I'm in a bad relationship is like the Bones, someone recites a medical fact. You know something is going to back it up immediately after. And Virgil walks right up at this point and grabs Deborah by the arm and says, we're getting out of here. Basically, you know, showing that he's an asshole right in front of Jesse. Jesse tries to stop all of this. Actually, Deborah does too. She says, I'm actually at work. I need to be doing this. But we find out Virgil is not only the bad boyfriend, he's Deborah's manager.
Never a good idea.
I mean, you don't shit where you eat.
They have a little shove match here, Jesse and Virgil, and it just gave me flashbacks of Mike versus Mark from The Room, like pushing him into the trash can. It was very badly done, but warmed my heart a little.
That's the other thing about Rex Smith. He's not good at the physicality of this role.
He came off better in the little thing they had than Virgil does. Virgil just kind of flops onto the table and then says, you get out of here. You can't ever be here again, and leaves and makes Deborah drive them away.
You've bested me once. Honey, take me home.
It's kind of how that thing plays out at the end. He's like, well, you may have thrown me in the table, but I'm going to have my girlfriend drive me home now.
And once that's done, we see the trailer again. Neil pops out of that thing, and we see him talking to a couple of goons. He has one directive. I would like for you to murder Virgil. Which, cool.
And I believe the one goon could do it because he looks like Yo-Yo from Holmes and
Yes,
Yo-Yo.
we have a tall goon and a short goon.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is our first shot of Metropolitan Police Department, which is a very vague name that you could put in any city.
I didn't really think about that.
Rachel, the only woman in the main cast, walks up with big 80s hair and big 80s earrings and asks Jesse if Deborah Shane will do that PSA. It's really kind of Rachel's thing, the PSA. Jesse ignores the question and starts talking about how Deborah should not be with Virgil Powell. He's a jerk, which is true.
Is this a thing you can do if you're a cop? You're doing your day-to-day thing, somebody annoys you, so then you just get all of their criminal information?
I don't know. It seems not like you should be able to.
Yeah, I don't know the legalities.
It seems like working at a bank, you can't just pull up a family member's account.
No, here's the thing.
Well, you're not supposed to.
Okay, fair enough.
And I think this is probably the same thing.
Okay.
Jesse probably isn't supposed to pull the criminal file of just a random acquaintance.
It's kind of like when I worked at T-Mobile in the call center. You're not supposed to go into Paris Hilton's account and look and see the numbers on there.
Right.
Her T-Mobile account. It's really funny to me for some reason, but I guess
It's a true story.
Paris
Gotta have
Hilton
a phone.
just has a phone. Yeah, she has to have an account.
Although I don't think many celebrities manage their own phones
Right.
probably.
No.
However, there was a story, and this is 2008, so that's a long time ago. But
Well, you did say Paris Hilton.
yeah, and T-Mobile. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. T-Mobile's still pretty big. But she apparently called in directly, and they spread the number around the whole call center, and everyone who accessed it got the axe.
Ooh,
Ooh,
including
boy.
you?
No, I wasn't there yet. And
Oh,
also,
okay.
I wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, oh, Paris Hilton's phone number. I don't need that.
I'm really into the idea of Paris Hilton bargain shopping for a better cell phone plan, though.
My
Herself.
friends and family, I need more than 4.
Nicole Richie says I should switch to Sprint. Is Sprint still around?
Probably.
I think they're gone. They were absorbed by someone.
Maybe T-Mobile.
I have T-Mobile.
Oh, really?
And yes, that's correct. That is who took over Sprint. Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to talk about cell phone company mergers, but
Why
or
not?
Paris Hilton. But here we are. Street Hawk.
Alltel.
Jesse's quick search of Virgil does reveal 4 assault charges from women, so this is a total piece of shit. Rachel is very confused by all of this because she has no context. We flash back to Deborah. She's driving Virgil to his mom's house or something. I don't know. Virgil's in the passenger seat and complaining about Jesse and the whole scene back at the picnic table. Deborah says Jesse's a good guy despite being a cop. Also, our relationship is really bad. We're basically just roommates, but you're violent as well.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep it that way. He says something
That's
like
what
that.
Virgil says. He doesn't even deny it.
But he still wants to have all the power. And he's like, maybe we're just roommates, but we'll stay roommates until I say we're not roommates anymore.
You know what? You're driving because I told you to drive. I know how to drive. I can drive a car, but you do it.
I could do it if I wanted to, but I just don't want to. All of a sudden, the soundtrack kind of starts to intensify with 80s synth. But then Street Hawk bursts forth from behind a mural wall that's been hiding his secret lair the whole time. This is our first look at actual Street Hawk the motorcycle, and also our first look at Norman Tuttle, the engineer we spoke so highly of earlier.
Mastermind.
He's in his Han Solo business casual outfit.
And he's kind of in a Batcave lair.
Does he just live there?
I think so. I don't think Norman goes outdoors. He has a lot of monitors and computer screens, pencils. He needs those.
I'll be honest, though, the technology in this doesn't look bad.
No.
For
No,
example,
I bought it.
I'm reminded of Turbulence 3 from a few weeks ago with the skull counter and all that. This doesn't look that much worse than that, and that's 15 years later.
Street Hawk is no less outdated than Turbulence 3 was 18 years later. That is true. Norman's job while Jesse is out street hawking is to essentially guide him and do whatever he needs to help him be Street Hawk. And Norman tells Jesse, in this case, you're supposed to be doing a Street Hawk test, but you're not going in that direction. What are you doing? Jesse says, I'm checking on the pop star Deborah Shane. Norman correctly assumes you would like to have sex with Deborah Shane. That's what this is all
And you're
about,
really
right?
not supposed to use Street Hawk for that.
No.
Fucking nerd. Come
That's-
on.
Street Hawk is to be left out of fanboy shit.
Okay, when you put it that way. But the whole like, let me push my glasses up as Street Hawk is only used for this. You mustn't go outside the rules.
Norman is a bit of a Street Hawk gatekeeper. That is true.
And I like Norman.
I
But
do too. The other thing about Norman, he doesn't know who Deborah Shane is, which basically causes Jesse to call him an old fogey because she's the hottest thing to hit the scene since Madonna. That's really what they say in the show.
Which also explains why there are no security guards. Madonna doesn't use security guards.
No, she's freewheeling all the time. Probably signs up for her own T-Mobile account.
Now that's an account I would look at. Paris Hilton, no. Madonna, yes.
Jesse ignores everything Norman says, goes right to Deborah's house. Good thing he does, too. Deborah and Virgil pull up also outside of Deborah's house to find those Neil goons waiting for them because they'd like to kill Virgil. Before he gets out of the car, though, Virgil hands a manila envelope that he gets out of a briefcase. He's just pulling stuff out of other stuff repeatedly
The Matryoshka doll of
criminal records. He hands this to Deborah and says, hang on to this. This is my insurance policy. Virgil approaches the Neil's goons and gets shot right away.
No, he was so likable.
And I actually kind of like this. I thought Virgil was going to be a big bad
Yeah.
in this episode. Nope, he's disposed of very quickly, and there was nothing about him that made me feel sorry for him.
I also actually gained a little respect for him because he showed basically that he had no spine or courage until this point, and then he did just kind of walk to his death pretty willingly.
He
'Cause
did.
he knew what was happening.
Yeah, he knew he was going to die, and he didn't back down from that. So right at the end of his life, I felt a little redemption for Virgil.
I would have liked him to pull a switchblade out of his shoe and dance around with it before getting shot a little bit, but, we take what we can get.
He shoved him once, I think.
He did get a shove in.
And this show does have the budget to do all this computer stuff and this cool motorcycle and all that, except for the first maybe 30 minutes of this episode. Anytime someone fires a gun, it's a prop gun that the actors have to pretend it's recoiling, and there's no smoke, no bang, nothing. They fix it later, but can you not buy like a cap gun?
Right.
You can't buy
think
that?
There'd be a better solution even in 1985, but as we've covered a lot of these older shows, I have noticed that commonplace fixes like that, maybe it was a time crunch, but they're often just papered over or ignored.
Partly a time crunch, but also because the resolution was so bad.
Yeah.
Like you didn't notice details to
No
quite
one
the
will ever
degree.
notice. These will never look better than they do today. Virgil's dead now. Street Hawk's not. He drives right up as Deborah is driving away. Street Hawk then tricks the short henchman to drive right into another car because he hits a button that shits glass. It's one of the 5 Street Hawk buttons. I don't know. There's not very many things it can do.
Yeah, there's 6 or 7 buttons, but they only use 2 to 3 at max.
Yeah, the one he uses a lot, which is a lot of machine gun fire or
Right.
something
That's
like
his
that.
most popular one. It would go to the head of the queue if there were a Street Hawk button queue.
And then there's that other one where, it goes 300 miles an hour.
I assume Jesse thinks the cops will just find this man. He's not dead. He just rolled into another car and could get out and run away.
But he doesn't.
But he doesn't, and Street Hawk leaves.
He also just kind of looks around like, oh, well, nobody's here to get me, but I don't know. Them's the rules.
He won. And he did, because at Metropolitan Police Department, that little goon's being interviewed in an interrogation room and claiming he doesn't know anything about this crime.
Real bad actor.
Really bad.
This is really, really bad. I rewound to watch him again because he's like, I don't know what you were talking about. I am not criminal.
Virgil was okay,
He was
actually.
fine.
But he is far worse, the small goon. The big goon's bad too, but he seems like he's supposed to be a big dumb
I enjoyed
type.
the big goon.
I did
Yeah.
too.
Big, like, goofball goon who talks too much.
And
He's a stereotype.
big 80s goons. I love big 80s goons. I always will. Robert Zadar, king of big 80s goons.
You know that thing from Popeye that's called the goon?
No, I don't think so. I know about olive oil and Bluto.
And Wimpy, he has the burgers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Popeye Jr. That's
Oh.
not right.
I didn't know
I hope it
Popeye
is.
had a junior.
Sweet Pea.
Yeah.
That's the
Sweet
baby.
Pea.
So what's this thing in Popeye?
Why are we talking about
What the
Popeye?
fuck are we talking about Popeye
He
for?
shouldn't be. No, it's called the Goon. And okay, so
Okay.
Popeye was a comic strip, evidently.
Huh.
I went down a rabbit hole recently.
Popeye hole.
So, ew. So anyway, in one of the comic strips, Popeye gets lost on an island where he meets this species, and they're real big, weird things. You've seen a picture because it's jarring to look at, but I don't have it in front of me. But anyway, they're called the Goon or Goonie or something like that. And then it turns out all of the members of the Goon species, because it's not just like a different person, it's a species, they are all female. So it was a she, and then they played that up in the show for a while that it was a boy, but now it's a girl and now has a bow on. But it's called The Goon, and it's big and frightening.
I had no idea there was like an extended Popeye universe.
Let me tell you. No, I don't know.
Lieutenant Commander Altabelli, who I'm just calling Altabelli from now on, he and Jesse are listening in on this interrogation via intercom. And Leo, he says Street Hawk left us with a dead body and no answers. They didn't realize Street Hawk was there for a good cause.
Well, so in this universe, Street Hawk is a Batman vigilante.
Yes.
Only some people are for.
I don't think
Yes.
we really know for sure what his intentions are, I guess.
Okay.
From their perspective, it's like, I don't know if we can trust Street Hawk.
It's just some stranger on a motorcycle.
Right. I don't know
tearing
why
us
we
around.
can't just tell the cops one of your officers is Street Hawk.
No, it's a secret.
He's trying to help.
We can't tell anyone.
Who is the organization that does this? Because they call him a police problem solver in the intro. I think?
Troubleshooter, yeah, which I thought was a strange term.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be some sort of federal organization.
So it's government based.
It's above the Metropolitan Police Department, whatever organization runs Street Hawk program.
Okay, because Knight Rider was the result of like an independent guy.
Yeah, a rich
right?
guy, whereas this is a government-funded thing
Okay,
by the people. Our tax dollars went to Street Hawk.
I wish they did.
that's fine. I'm
Yeah, I
okay
know.
with
Raise my taxes, give more of them to Street Hawk.
that. On the ballot this month is the 5-cent Street Hawk tax hike.
I'm going to vote yes on Proposition Hawk. Leo's impatient, and he's yelling about Street Hawk, and he says, we need to get Deborah Shane in here for questioning. That tiny woman is probably who committed this murder over the criminal Virgil. Jesse says that is not what happened. I just can't say how because I'm Street Hawk.
Yeah. I mean, I just know, I guess, scratching his head.
I'd like to find out what evil plots Neil is up to at RJ Records, but first, I'd like to go to the bathroom. At the RJ Records offices, Neil is given a real talking to that big goon because he killed Virgil and did not get the incriminating tape. And now Deborah has the tape.
And it's a talking to, but it's also not really, because it's like, you did bad, but keep going. Work for me some more.
Next time, I mean, I don't expect you to bat 1,000, but maybe get the tape next time you commit a murder in broad daylight.
Maybe he's just a good boss and he understands that mistakes happen.
Out of nowhere, though, we pan over and there's another guy in the room. It's a seated British man in a blue blazer, which is the ultimate villain signifier, especially of the 1980s. This is a second kind of 80s goon, which is the yuppie goon.
He's like almost overqualified to be a
He's
goon,
more
you
of
know?
an assassin.
He's going to get it done.
Yeah, I refer to him as the assassin of mine. He's vaguely German. I think that's what they're going for.
He's European of some kind.
He's very blonde.
Little sinister.
And that's how I like my, amazing assassins. I want them to be sinister, 5'6", a blonde Michael Dukakis haircut.
Vaguely Euro-ethnic, so I
Mhm.
don't have to feel too like the show is racist. This assassin man chimes in and says, hey, I would happily kill Deborah. I have a briefcase and a gun I'm playing with like they're just toys. I enjoyed his, I guess, prop work. Neil hands a file on Deborah over to this guy, as well as just a shitload of money, and the assassin ensures Neil, I'll kill Deborah. You know what? I'll even kill Street Hawk if I have to.
No, not for free, though. That's going to cost a lot extra.
Yeah. Also, like, that's fucking possible.
He acts like it's no big deal. He's like, well, if he gets in the way, I'll bump him off, too.
I shall take down the Street Hawk.
I have killed the Spider-Man before. I can kill the Street Hawk, no problem. World-famous superstar Deborah Shane is at a payphone calling the police. But she gets Rachel, not Jesse. She wanted to talk to Jesse. And she's trying to tell Jesse, I'm in trouble now. Deborah reaches Rachel, though, which is just Rachel wanting her to do a PSA, essentially. I like the idea, though, that Deborah, who's really famous, has disguised herself just by wearing sunglasses.
That's all it takes. She saw Superman and said, I can do that.
Deborah takes off in her car after making this phone call because she's on the run from who knows how many people at this point. At the Street Hawk lair, Jesse and Norman are poring over piles of newspapers, magazines, whatever, that are kind of scattered on a big table, trying to find out what they can on Deborah Shane. I don't know why I like this visually, like just a couple of investigators going over what they have, looking for answers.
It's quaint, right?
They need like a research assistant, like entry level, who can help them out with that. I would take that job.
Like Bible Girl, because she stayed at the Bible house and did all this work.
But they could call the research assistant some sort of cute play on Street Hawk, like Indoor Sparrow. Because they're smaller and not as murdery.
Assistant Arctic Tern.
Would you guys do that job for minimum wage? But you get to work in the lab.
Yeah, I
think
think
so.
I'd do it.
I would.
Hang out with Norman.
And then you befriend him. I bet he'd give you a raise.
Eventually.
I think so.
You got to start at minimum wage is all I'm saying.
Okay.
Norman,
Work
by
your
the
way up
way,
the
Yeah.
Street Hawk corporate ladder.
Work your way up to Street Hawk.
Norman is super forward thinking in this scene too, because as they're going through all this information, he's like, why hasn't anybody digitized this yet in 1985? If you could just put an online archive out there for me, I could Street Hawk way more effectively.
He's got a good point, too.
We reboot Street Hawk.
Nude Street Hawk.
That's Nighthawk.
It was his mission to ride Street Hawk.
Then we could have the Norman Tuttle character be like a computer savvy nerd who's mad or maybe infatuated with the kind of quaint things that we're seeing. Like,
Yeah.
he's really enjoys old records, that sort of thing.
I like that idea. Norman's actually the first one, not Jesse, to find an important clue, which is an article about RJ Records. Neil, the executive we've met, he declined to comment in this article on the death at sea of his record label partner. Seems a little suspect to me.
I don't know. We just heard about some millionaires who got death by seed recently,
That's
so
true.
it happens.
They might have been involved in some sort of record company street hawk plot.
Might have gone over the Bermuda Triangle. We don't know.
We'll just have to wait for answers.
Bermuda Triangle answers.
For the time being, though, Jesse and Norman kind of brush over the whole RJ Records thing, which is actually pretty important, because they find an article about Deborah Shane where she gives all of the credit for her success to this old jazz musician named, or blues rather, musician named Artie Shank.
Artie Shank?
Yeah.
The Artie Shank?
The Artie Shank. I did not like that they gave the two guest musician characters the last names Shane and Shank.
Super confusing.
And said them 1,000 times each with neither character on screen. Yeah, really convoluted.
You feel like that would get caught quickly.
Yeah, by the Street Hawk editing team, I know.
Did you know Artie Shank did Blue Rain and Serving Time?
Very glad you also had the specific song titles in your notes, fan. A+ work. I love all the music stuff in shows like this. They're trying to flesh out a world. It's just delicious. I want to chew on it. Jesse finds out where Artie lives, and that means it's time for a little bit of a road mission that proves once and for all Norman can leave the lair. Norman and Jesse are going to go see the famous Artie Shank. Van, I bet you wish that was you, getting to meet the Artie Shank.
I'd love to meet the Artie Shank.
You are always your singing Blue Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse's actually surprised Norman wants to go and meet Artie Shank, though.
I didn't know you knew anything about music.
Well, look, I said I wasn't interested in rock and roll, but now Artie Shank, that is good music. But you know something? Something is bugging me about this article. Why would Deborah Shane credit her success to Artie Shank? Their music has no similarity.
How can you say that? Rock and roll has its roots in rhythm and blues.
Come on, rhythm and blues is music. Rock is noise.
You know, if you listen to it, you might like it.
I listen, and I don't like it.
Ah, yes, the age-old debate. Old people versus young people. What constitutes true art? My favorite thing about this, though, is that the very, standard hooky pop song we saw Deborah singing earlier would be so abrasive Norman can't handle it.
What's fascinating to me is I forget that there really were people who were like, rock music isn't music.
Yeah.
Because like by 1992, that sentiment was gone. Like people recognized rock was music in at least some capacity. You don't hear that anymore, so it's fascinating to see.
It's also irrefutable that rock came right out of rhythm and blues.
Oh, absolutely.
So in this one, point to Jesse over Norman, and I don't like to say that. I don't mind saying point to Street Hawk. It's Jesse that I don't want to award anything to.
Does he get like powers when he's Street Hawk, or is it really just a guy in a helmet and an outfit?
I like to believe he gets powers.
I think it's just a motorcycle, though.
That's what I'm thinking, but I still can't fathom
they
why.
fixed his legs so he could ride the motorcycle better.
This is the guy that they've banked all of the Street Hawk money on, and I just don't get it.
I did leave one important Rex Smith fact out earlier. He really can ride a motorcycle. He was really good at it.
He mentioned on that thing that he had gotten hurt
Yes.
very badly, just like his character. So he was like, and that's how I really identified it with him, which is
I
funny.
really identify with being Street Hawk. Our next setting is Artie Shank's warehouse that he kind of halfway lives in and teaches out of. We see the goons. They're staking out the place because they would like to apprehend Deborah. They also have figured out exactly what Jesse figured out, which is there's a relationship between Artie and Deborah. She's likely to come here with the evidence we need. The tall goon is really trying to chat up the assassin guy. The assassin guy just says, hey, stop it, shut up, I hate you.
I thought that was like a sneakily good scene.
I liked
actually.
it too.
The way he even delivers the line, the British assassin, so seriously. What is the goon's name?
Tall goon?
Yo-Yo.
So he says like he addresses him professionally, Mr. Tall Goon, or whatever his real name is, pauses and then shut up. And then he says something about respecting silence and he's insulting it. I just thought that was a little surprisingly well done.
It was
for the
very
rest
dry,
of the episode.
and like he did it just right. Yeah.
It had a good tone for what I think the show really should be. Deborah pulls up moments later, and that's when the assassin pops out with his gun. She sees this and just drives away.
Yeah.
Very anticlimactic.
World's best assassin here or whatever that we're led to believe. He gets out of the car holding his gun in the air.
Waving it around, essentially. He might as well have had like an air horn.
See, I think he was negatively impacted by Tall Goon. That's the only way to explain this, is like having been around that guy and that guy was talking to him and he wouldn't
Threw
shut
him off
up.
his
And
game.
yeah, he's not doing what he's fully capable of.
The dumb rubbed off onto him.
A little bit.
To your point, Spencer, the tall goon says, well, let's chase after her. And the assassin says, no, idiot, she's going to come back here. She has nowhere else to go. Let's just plop down in the car.
But, okay, I understand the concept of, let's hang back, let's think this through, figure it
Work
out.
smarter, not harder.
But she came here once. Sure, she saw me with a gun coming at her, but she'll come back.
Yes,
That's
and you
not
are
the best
right.
logic.
The show is making us think this is a smart point. And if she hadn't seen them, it would be.
Sure. I think they need to go a little undercover. Make Tall Goon pose as Artie's student, so he has to learn how to play the rhythm and blues piano stuff that his student was doing.
I've always wanted to know how to play Beethoven's Fifth.
And that's the rest of the episode, is Tall Goon learning how to play piano.
My fingers are too fat to push one key. Hey guys, I wonder what they're going to make an old jazz or R&B artist look like in the 80s. I wonder if they're going to do a stereotypical thing,
I
or
don't
maybe
think
we'll be
so.
surprised.
The bad guys don't really care that Deborah left. They pull around the side of the building, just stake the place out further, and just then a third set of people arrives. And this is Norman and Jesse. They're here at Artie's warehouse. They did not come by Street Hawk, though. They drove here. Normal style.
Do you think there are ever any scenes of like Street Hawk with Norman clutching his waist, sitting behind him on the motorcycle?
I hope so. Or maybe they built a sidecar in one of the episodes. That'd
Both
be
are
great.
good. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little confused, though, by Jesse. He's doing Street Hawk duties, but not on Street Hawk. Is this a third identity he has to keep?
I wondered the same thing. Is this regular police? No, it can't be.
I think it is, because, he was asking
I guess
at
it
the
is.
at the station for details about something or other. Well, okay, yeah, because we've seen the death. The death of Virgil happened, so it's a police matter, so he's kind of investigating that and that.
I don't
sense.
feel like Street Hawk's police officers have designated enough roles. They all seem to kind of do whatever.
Honestly, we don't know how big Metropolitan Police
That's
Department
true.
It's
is.
four
may
people,
be.
I think.
Yeah, so you have to wear many hats.
For the entire city. Like they're also your rat catchers. There's a lot of rats in this
I
city.
think they're also the teachers in Metropolitan. Maybe that's the name of the city.
I think we figured it out.
Jesse and Norman walk up the stairs to Artie's arguing about what music is because they hear a piano. Norman's like, that's blues. Jesse's like, that's rock and roll. And it's just a standard scale, like a blues scale, which could be either one of those things. When the cops walk in, what they've done is interrupt a child's piano lesson, which at first makes Artie mad. And Artie's normally a polite older black gentleman, which, as Van alluded to, is every jazz or blues musician in a movie of this era, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say prior to 1992, if you were an older black male, you were only cast as jazz or R&B or blues musicians. That's it. That's the only thing.
Or people that die in horror movies.
Or, you know what, like the assistant cop. Because
Yeah.
I think Danny Glover was assistant cop.
Yeah,
and-
exactly. You could, unfortunately, though, black actors were just not given main roles, and
No.
I feel like there's something to the idea of let's just give them like a wisdom role that's not a real person. That happens in shows like this. It feels very tossed off.
Hollywood.
I do like Artie though. He comes across as very gentle and lovable.
I was just getting ready to say you have to like the character.
He's pretty
yeah,
great.
the actor does a great job.
And he can apparently really play piano because at the end of the episode, we see him playing.
They don't call him Artie Shank Blues for nothing.
What if he was really bad? Just atrociously bad. And the final little bit of the episode is him incorrectly just mashing at the keys.
So it's like the opposite of that Office episode where Kevin can sink threes like one after the
Yep.
other, and you wouldn't think so. With Artie, it's you would think so, but he can't.
But he can't. My hands were mauled years ago. Someone else records the parts for me. Artie decides now's a good time to tell the cops my relationship with Deborah, which he really goes for the whole damn thing, which is he met her at a correctional facility after she got in trouble as a teen, and she was a performer at the correctional facility. Artie thought she was great, so once she got out, well, she joined his band, and she became a big famous star after that. I like that the show goes out of its way to make sure we know, look, Deborah didn't do anything worse than like shoplifting, so we don't have to think less of her.
So was she performing in prison?
Yeah, as part of the jail band, I
Or
guess.
Was he performing for prison, a la like Johnny Cash?
You know,
I don't know that any of it
I
makes
think
sense.
Artie was performing and she performed with him or joined in.
Right. Like a
during the
Courtney Cox
performance.
thing with Bruce Springsteen
Exactly
dancing around.
like that. Yes. Some people have called Artie Shank the Bruce Springsteen of Street Hawk.
That's some people. It's you.
After Artie gives the whole Deborah backstory to Jesse and Norman, Jesse gets mad. He says, "We're trying to solve a murder here, Artie. Deborah's life is at risk." Artie says, "I'm going to yell at you too because I care about Deborah, but I don't know why we're arguing."
Why are we getting aggressive with one another?
Eventually, they just both stop and Artie says, "I will help." I'm not sure what the impetus for that was. Artie just now, after all this time, reveals, you know what? Deborah was supposed to be here 30 minutes ago and didn't show up, which could be a big indicator something is amiss, right? Like, you might want to tell cops that.
Don't trust cops. ACAP. All cops
True,
are
Artie,
bad.
that's true. Artie is also afraid one of these cops might be Raymond's brother. Artie now reveals we did have a backup plan for a second location, which is Deborah is going to my second home, the Limelight Club.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Because outside you see like the logo or whatever, but there was no words. It was just a bunch of jazz shapes.
There is one sign with Limelight Club on it that I did see, which is the only reason I know. Because I'm the sort of person who zooms into stuff on Street Hawk. Jesse, Norman, and Artie decide we've got a mission now and it's to go to the Limelight Club. The goons see this, though, so they're going to go there, too. So are we.
I love being in the limelight.
It's nighttime now. We're at the Limelight Club. It's a nice little seedy, jazzy, bluesy dive bar. Deborah shows up and hugs Artie just as soon as she sees him. Artie says, "Don't worry, Deborah, you have a lot of friends now. I know how you love police." Just then, Jesse and Norman stand up and, or basically Deborah's eyes roll. Artie says, "Look, I trust him, so you should too." So Deborah does. I guess if your jazz dad tells you something like that, you go with it.
You're not going to fight with your jazz dad. Sometimes when you're fighting, he'll go skip it up, beep it up, move it. You'll go shooba-dooba-dooba-dooba, duking and jiving.
Hey, don't shoot. Scat. Deborah explains, police cannot protect me. Not in a case like this. This is bigger than the law. She talks about how cops just arrest people once they have a suspect. They don't actually care if they get the right guy.
Huh.
Which, yeah, that happens a lot. And this is relative to her personal experience. But Jesse says, I only want to protect and date you. And have you do a PSA for me. Deborah tells Jesse, I don't know if this is related, but Virgil actually handed me a videotape right before dying.
And I didn't watch it at all.
Yeah,
how would you not watch that?
I didn't really even think about it afterwards, but he said, this is my insurance, and I just put it in my car. It's just kind of in the glove box. Right now, the Euro assassin, he comes in and starts firing bullets just indiscriminately in the Limelight Club.
I guess this is just his MO, like go guns a-blazing, because he steps out of the car with the gun, scares her away. He literally walks into the club, gun pointed.
I'm not certain he even saw Deborah there. He might have just walked in and started firing and yelling things.
I don't really have an excuse for the assassin this time. And he might just be bad.
Well, maybe if this were his bar that he goes to regularly, he comes in and the people there are used to it, and it's kind of like a norm situation.
Oh, yeah, that's his entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Guns a-blazing.
Technically, I guess the assassin is good at his job, though, because he does succeed. He kidnaps Artie with a big bear hug.
Artie stands up and just leaps into the guy's arms.
Yeah. And they walk out. Nothing Street Hawk, well, he's not Street Hawk right now, that's why. But nothing Jesse can do about it. Nothing Deborah can do about it. Jesse follows the assassin trying to get Artie back. Doesn't work. He loses him because he doesn't have Street Hawk. He has a normal car. That's not, what can you do with that?
But not normal car.
No, not car.
No.
Car.
Car with a C. It's plan making time. Norman and Jesse decide the best thing for me to do, that's Jesse, is probably to be Street Hawk, but I can't do that. I have to go with Deborah to watch whatever's on this videotape. Who knows? Maybe it's important. Norman, take my car back to the lair and do Norman stuff. So that's what everybody does at this point. Deborah doesn't even want to look at the videotape now because doing so requires going to a police station, presumably where they have the only VCR in town.
Yeah, I didn't understand why they had to go there.
I didn't either. Especially because wouldn't they wonder why Jesse is so deep involved in this investigation? I don't know.
You think Jesse's Street Hawk?
Back at Metropolitan Police Department, Jesse, Deborah, and Leo Altabelli are gathering around the most 80s TV you've ever seen. It's a little 13-inch bubble to watch this footage on the tape. And at first it looks like it's just like, I don't know, extra B-roll from the music video shoot. And Leo, who again is a terrible police lieutenant, captain, commander, or whatever, I mean, he gives up right away. Oh, you're wasting my time, Jesse. I hate you.
A whole 5 seconds and nothing happened. Clearly nothing will.
Oh, but it does right away. The tape goes off and back on, and we see a man shoot another man, and there's a noticeable gleam coming from the wrist of the killer. Jesse thinks it might be a bracelet, but the video is really dark. The darkness of the video, that also makes Leo give up. Well, never mind. I've witnessed a murder, but it's not clear enough. Might as well not try to solve it.
That's the same thing that happens when he loses his glasses during the day. He's like, I can't see it, so therefore it didn't happen.
For her part, Deborah, a look of recognition crosses her face. She realizes she knows something about this murder, and this changes how she's going to act from this point forward. Deborah adds, you know what? Now that I've seen this tape, this is probably why someone wanted Virgil dead. Like there weren't just any number of reasons someone would want to kill Virgil, including her.
I was going to say she would want him dead.
Deborah mysteriously heads out now, away from the police station, and goes back to her favorite payphone to call Neil Jacobs the big bad guy, the murderer, one of the murderers. She arranges a trade. I want my mentor Artie back, and I'm going to give you this murderous tape. It's clear now Deborah recognized that expensive bracelet as belonging to Neil, and in fact, Virgil does point it out at the beginning of the episode in the trailer. He says, how much did that fancy jewelry cost you,
And it's
Neil?
really poorly placed in the scene when it happens. It's like, oh, well, this is going to be important at some
Very,
point.
very awkward.
Chekhov's bracelet.
We reach another thing Deborah does that seems kind of advanced for a one-off character in the 1980s, especially a woman, because women weren't given intelligent roles at this time. Deborah picks Silver Screen Studios, a very crowded Hollywood locale, I guess it's Hollywood, I don't know, where movies and TV shows and music videos are shot, as the meeting point for this trade-off, showing that she wants to be in a crowded location, does not want to risk being taken by RJ Records and their goon squad.
Tall goon and assassin blonde goon.
Yes.
Well, I guess we could meet at the abandoned warehouse instead.
Which is usually what happens. Neil and Deborah then both agree to things they're not going to do. Deborah says, I'll come alone. Neil says, I'm not going to have anyone with guns there. Back at the police department, Leo is yelling again at Jesse. He says, you don't have enough evidence. The tape is dark. I hate being a cop. I'm not going to do my job right. Rachel walks in, though, and she's thankful. She tells Jesse, you did a great job. You got Deborah Shane to do the PSA. Everyone in the room's confused because that never happened. Jesse says, she turned it down. Rachel says, Deborah just left the building. Why was she here then? Deborah wasn't supposed to leave the building. She certainly wasn't supposed to call Neil and arrange a trade herself, so Jesse leaves. He goes to find her, but not as Jesse, as Street Hawk. Street Hawk comes out of his little lair wall, and oh boy, he's rock hard, he's emboldened, and he gets sassy with Norman. Street Hawk says, hey, you can fuss with your little tapes. I'm going to go save my lover. Street Hawk tears around the town at night to Bob Seger's Hollywood Nights, and it's great. I loved it.
Big moment.
I did not expect a Las Vegas-style Hollywood Nights Bob Seger-filled
Telling you.
montage, but here we are.
Like we talked about up at the top of the episode when I said I was impressed, and I was. I sat there and out loud said, oh, they snuck in some Seeger.
Very cool. We've had Tangerine Dream and Bob Seger already in this episode. Great.
There's more
Street
coming.
Hawk. Oh, yeah, there certainly is. Deborah's at the VHS cassette store because that you could do a whole store about that in the 1980s. And she's getting a blank cassette. Wonder what her plan might be. It's only going to cost her $4.25 to buy a blank VHS cassette. And no, I didn't do it. And I can't believe I didn't, but I don't know what that equals in today's money.
That seems like it would be very expensive.
Right? I
like
thought
at least
so too.
$10 or something.
I feel like a VHS tape now shouldn't cost that, even though they're probably rare
Right.
to find a blank VHS cassette.
She's probably just going to go home and record Wise Guy like my mom did.
Wise guy.
The idea of a blank VHS still gets me excited from my childhood
Oh,
days.
yeah.
When you could get one of those and you could make it whatever you wanted to. When you saw the brand new,
And you could
never used before.
write very properly on
oh
the
yeah,
label.
you could be like, what am I going to put on this? It was,
Which Mystery Science Theater 3000 is on this tape?
I could go rent Aladdin 3 Return of Jafar and record it here. Because, you had 2 VCRs.
Oh, yeah.
You play on one. I was original pirate.
Yeah, my dad was doing that stuff in the 80s.
He was the original
He
pirate.
knew all about it. He knew all about how to not give Albertsons an extra 99 cents for a video rental. It was great. Neil's back in his office again at RJ Records, and he's meeting with his hired goons. The European assassin guy gives him a little bit of lip about this. He goes, "Oh, Neil, you never get your hands dirty. I'm the one who has to do all the killing." That's actually not true, though. This is all based around a tape that shows Neil murdering a guy.
And the assassin so far has not done a good job.
No, he might have killed several bar patrons who were innocent. Neil tells the assassin to fuck off. Just do what I ask you to do. Kill Deborah, maybe Street Hawk, something like that. The assassin says, "Fine, I'll do it. I'll call you when it's done."
This is one of my favorite lines in this show, actually. Neil tells the assassin, "You take care of everything, kill everyone." And then the assassin's response is, "Whatever."
Yeah. It's like,
that's it.
Like anyone at their job, just being asked to do what they normally do.
Yeah, whatever.
They should have had a montage of him killing people set to 9 to 5 right after that. At the Street Hawk lair, the good guys are amping up for their big mission to close out the episode. Norman, I'll tell you how psyched up he is. He's typing on 2 keyboards at the same time.
You know what I love in my computer whiz technical marvel is watching them hunt and peck and look at the keyboard as they're typing. I thought about this too when I was thinking of this joke. I look at the words when I type. Is that what you guys do, or do you look at the keyboard?
No, I don't think I've ever looked at the keyboard to type.
Yeah,
No.
I think that's like a I don't know how to type thing. You look at the keyboard.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the hunt and peck
You
method.
guys are probably typing on 1 keyboard.
It's fair,
Typically.
fair.
Norman's doing 2 at the same time because that is how, if you're good at computers, that's how you would do it.
2 keyboards.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That is
more is better.
Mentally, I'm
Technology.
I'm interested in the thought process of typing 2 different things with
More.
2 different hands.
You can do more of it.
You sold me. I didn't get it, but now I do.
I really do think that this could only happen in the 80s because there were enough people who didn't understand what keyboards and monitors even were.
And the technical bullshit in this show is pretty good.
Yeah, Norman says the following things. 137, magnification, light distribution, 17. Yeah, those are things he says for real.
Can't
And
argue with it.
Street Hawk thinks those are real. Norman thinks they're real. Everyone acts like they're very serious things to say.
It's very Super Troopers-y. Enhance.
Well, but it works, though.
Yes.
It does enhance the photo on the screen Norman's looking at, which is the blurry video of Neil's murder. And that's what they find out. The murderer, it was Neil. Norman and Jesse then finally put the whole scheme together that Deborah, a non-policeman, a musician, already is put together. And they realize what's going on. Deborah's trying to make a deal for Artie, even though it's super dangerous. Speaking of Deborah, on to Silver Screen Studios. Deborah's heading in there for her rendezvous with the assassins. She doesn't really know that yet. We see her stuff that blank VHS cassette right into her purse alongside a gun, a very common combination to carry around with you in your go bag. A gun and a VHS cassette.
What do you think she labeled the VHS cassette? Second question, what do you think the original murder VHS cassette was labeled to?
See, Virgil labeled the original, so I think that one said, Neil blackmail tape.
And then the newer one, I think she probably labeled something like Virgil's home movie of murder or something like that.
She crossed out Virgil's blackmail tape to Virgil's murder or whatever.
Yeah, correct.
Just from one very obvious direct thing to something else that she's like, I like this better way of saying it.
She crosses both out and puts wise guys. As Deborah is arriving to meet her fate, Neil goes home because he doesn't get his hands dirty. You can tell, too, he's feeling good. My henchmen are killing Deborah. Gonna get my tape back. Gonna run RJ Records by myself. But when he opens his garage door, you see Street Hawk.
Who are you? What do you want?
You.
Me? What for?
Murder.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Yeah, and Jesse Mach sucks. Street Hawk rules. It's
Yes.
just what it is.
Does he want him for murder, like I'm bringing you in, or does he want to murder Neil?
Little column A, little column B.
I complained earlier about Jesse's voice. Whatever effect they put on it works, though, when you make him Street Hawk.
Murder.
Understandably, Neil gets the fuck out of there. He does not want to be killed by Street Hawk, but Street Hawk hits the machine gun button on his bike.
And there are several that are labeled. There's machine gun, particle beam, abort, vertical, and baby missile.
And there was the glass one. I don't know what that was.
That's unlabeled.
Oh, okay.
It's a miscellaneous. You can change it out. Sometimes it has those whistling birds from the Mandalorian.
It's like in Mario Kart when you jump up and hit a question mark block.
So Street Hawk doesn't even know what's going to happen when he hits that button.
No.
Correct.
I
Could
bet
be
that's
helpful.
fun for him. Little variety. Variety's the spice of life.
Most often he seems to be like, this seems like a machine gun situation.
I'm just going to push this one button.
Once Street Hawk is done machine gunning Neil's car, or a car, he traps Neil against a car, calls Norman, and Norman says, nice maneuver, like he's fucking Vince McMahon in 1993 calling a match. Norman shows off a little bit of a sadistic side and says, why don't you shoot lasers at him to keep him in place, to keep Neil from going anywhere? So, Street Hawk obliges. He hits the laser button a few times.
Okay, so you're Neil here.
You're fucked.
Are you expecting any motorcycle ever to shoot laser beams
No.
at you?
I think if you're Neil at first, you're expecting this is a bad guy on a motorcycle out to get me.
Yeah, he'll get off the motorcycle and come after me.
Yeah, that's scary enough. You don't know the motorcycle is actually kind of its own thing. Street Hawk demands from Neil after he's lasered at him, I want to know where Deborah Shane is. Tell me. I need answers or I'll laser you some more. So, you're not going to believe this. Neil tells him. What else is there to do?
Pretty much right away.
Street Hawk then leaves, once again assuming, I guess, the cops will get here and Neil will be a good guy and just turn himself in. And Neil, by the way, already is a killer. I feel like you don't leave a known murderer there and hope the cops get to him.
I mean, second time in this episode, that first goon.
Yeah, that's true.
Same thing.
Street Hawk is really thinking with a different head, I think. To get to Silver Screen Studios, though, that's going to take a little longer than Street Hawk wants it to take. So Norman counts down to hyper thrust. The synths, so do they. And the camera moves real fast. We see the first of this thing where there's a mile-per-hour indicator on the screen and kind of a crosshair. That indicates we're in Street Hawk POV vision.
And it says zoom on it.
Yeah.
No numbers, no scroll bar. Just says the word zoom.
Means fast.
Oh, that zoom.
Yeah,
That's what
it's that zoom.
Okay. Okay, let's backtrack maybe 80 episodes. Maybe that shock jock used Street Hawk
Roger
to get from point A
Bump-ass?
to point B. Yes, and that is really going to mess up that one cop's thing where he times everything out.
Oh, yeah, Estes.
Because now you can go up to 300 miles per hour.
Street Hawk would throw a big wrench
Yeah.
into Silk Stockings all around.
He'd have to do the math all different.
Plus the sexual escapades.
But that could really reinvigorate his love for his job. It's
He's
normally
getting
this.
bored calculating time
60
on
miles an
regular
hour.
cars.
And this time, though, motorcycle that goes 300.
You know what, Rita? I thought I saw it all, but there's a Street Hawk out there that really throws a wrench into my equations I figured out. I also like the idea of Chris from Silk Stockings being
Having that kind of depth.
Yeah, and having all these charts and stuff.
Right, like
he's-
you don't know how good at math he is until this moment. Street Hawk doesn't quite ever get to 300, does he? He doesn't get to his max.
Doesn't
No,
need to.
I think I've seen 210, maybe.
How would he ever be able to get to that speed? I know the bike can do it. I'm not questioning the technology. I'm questioning the infrastructure he's driving Street Hawk on. Where are you going 300 ever?
The Autobahn.
Is the whole city, is Metropolitan City just one big Autobahn all over?
It's actually like a bowl. So, all those NASCAR cars.
It's
that
like the
drive
whole thing's
angled?
a racetrack?
Yeah.
Yeah, the city's...
Or bowl, like I said.
Okay.
Whichever you think fits, Spencer.
I like racetrack.
I think that if we had Norman Tuttle here, we could get answers to these questions as he
Call
was
him
the
up.
engineer of Street Hawk. But yeah, I checked. He's not real.
If he made a vehicle for himself, he could call it the Tuttle Shuttle.
I like that. I also like the idea of him in one of those. Come on, bad guys.
Being
the Tuttle
neurotic.
Shuttle's coming for you. Jesse, aren't we cool? Me and you, Street Hawk and the Tuttle Shuttle. Back at Silver Screen Studios, a traveling circus music video is being shot, I think, as the safety dance plays, but only the chorus, probably for some sort of contractual reason.
Let me get this straight. The people in this universe at Silver Screen Studios or whatever said, I know there's a safety dance music video and it's a Ren Fair thing.
Yeah.
Not good enough. We need to make our own music video for the safety dance and just put weird shit in it. There's a Santa and a juggler and a guy on stilts. It's just weird shit occurring.
Just anything you could think of, pulled out of a hat, essentially.
Which is ironic because the safety dance is, of course, by men without hats. You would think they wouldn't have the hat to pull
These
it out
men have too many hats, if anything.
Maybe they thought their version would take off. After they see this in Street Hawk, they're going to want to reshoot that video.
Band's going to change its name even to Men with Hats. They're going to call it the Unsafe Dance. Deborah walks around all of these weird people on stilts that Van just mentioned and finds that European assassin. The assassin says, look, I don't have a gun. I'm just here to make the trade, like I said. No funny business. Deborah says, I need to see Artie then. He's my jazz dad. And the bigger goon sends Artie out at her behest. Everything's going according to plan, guys. Nothing weird here.
I bet the European assassin loves the safety dance.
Oh, I bet he does too. I bet he was like bopping his head as he was going through the entrance. He tells Deborah, you can go with Artie. This is fine, but I need to actually check the tape first and make sure the murder is on it. That's the point. I need to get the blackmail back, but this is labeled wise guys? Deborah knows the tape is blank, so she panics and runs with Artie, who is very old and bumbling. Probably not the best idea. Deborah pulls the gun she brought in alongside the blank tape to avoid fire from Big Goon, who was trying to kill her right away. That's his go-to, which kind of sucks because he's otherwise a nice guy. Big Goon.
Maybe a little bit annoying, but nice outside of the evil.
I don't like how he tries to shoot people.
Yeah, he's just following orders, though. He doesn't know any better. He's too dumb.
He could be rehabilitated,
Yeah,
I think. I legitimately
hope.
do. He is the reason why we don't need a death penalty.
He's that big communist horse from Animal Farm.
Somehow, sure. He might even be communist. I don't know where Big Goon's from.
True.
Time for one of, I'd say, the worst chase scenes. Deborah and Artie are running from the hitman as the safety dance chorus continues to just play and play and play. We see Street Hawk, though, zooming along in hyper thrust mode. And when he is on screen, we get the Tangerine Dream song again. These scenes are just alternating between we can dance, kind of an abrasive alternation.
Wonder if they thought that was going to be kind of like we're going to really make the audience on the edge of their seat right now. They're going to be so tense from this action.
Didn't work that way.
I didn't feel that way.
Eventually, I will say this, though. The chase gets into, further into the studio, the movie studio.
Yeah, and it's like a giant set, basically.
It's like a Western set, part of it with, a fake saloon and a fake ghost town. And this happens in movies and TV sometimes, where things will be set in a studio. I kind of like that for whatever the reason. It's like a fake set on a real set.
It's something that explains being able to do something goofy logically enough that it's acceptable to, suspension of disbelief. I'm okay with that. Whereas there are other tropes where they might shoehorn something in that I'm not okay with.
Exactly.
So I get it.
To your point, Vanna, Street Hawk drives right up and through what appears to be a brick wall, but it's fake. It's a prop. And poor Norman, he's like, oh, my best friend. Thinks Street Hawk is just going to crash and die into the brick wall. But no, it's a prop.
I'm surprised, though, that Norman doesn't have confidence that Street Hawk can get through a real brick wall.
I would have thought that, too.
Seems like it's engineered to do that.
Actually, he probably does. He's probably like, Street Hawk's going to be fine, but Jesse's going to be liquid if he runs into that thing. Jesse sucks. Once he's through the wall, Street Hawk finds the Big Goon and takes him out right away. He hits the explode button.
The baby missile button.
Right, the baby missile on his bike. Blows up a big barrow. There's a big barrow that's just sitting around.
Do you guys think that was overkill, or do you think it was worth it to use the missile?
Oh, I think it was great, because you need it. That goon is huge. But once the missile lands in front of the goon, I should add, Street Hawk doesn't ever try to kill anyone. He's trying to kind of disarm you.
Oh.
He does have kind of the Batman approach, which is trying not to actually murder someone.
But maybe avenge your dead parents. I don't know. Street Hawk's parents might be dead.
That is weird that 2 times now I've tried to reference Batman with Street Hawk somehow.
No, I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, I thought so.
It all adds up.
Just hit me. Who is Batman's a sidekick?
Robin,
which is a bird.
Oh,
which
Hawk?
Hawk, it's also a bird.
Alfred, that starts with A.
Yeah.
Artie.
West.
Starts with an A.
Adam West, that's a direction. Where is Hollywood located? West.
Of where we are right now. You know what? Directions?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you need to follow them? The street?
I thought you were going to say cardinal, like directions.
Yeah, that would have been good too. Another bird tie-in.
Anyway, I think we proved that point.
The Big Goon, after this explosion, he flew in the air and his gun also went flying. Deborah picks that gun up off the ground.
And so now it's Deborah with her gun and Artie Shank with his gun pointing at this goon, and it's just a bizarre scene to actually witness.
Yeah.
This is one of those shows that listeners out there, I love that you listen to our podcast, and I hope you continue. I don't always tell you to go watch the episodes we're covering. Go watch this.
Yeah,
it's so
one was
weird.
This one was very weird. Street Hawk rides up, and Deborah says, hey, Street Hawk, there's only one more killer out there. It's a weird European guy. I think he has some strange fetishes. Street Hawk rides away, leaving Deborah and Artie to guard this fallen gigantic murderer. Again, I guess they are armed, but still that guy's huge.
And he does know a little bit about being violent and they don't. I don't feel like they're qualified to watch Big Coon.
I
You
mean,
don't know that. You don't know if Artie Shank has killed some
That's
men
true.
in his day.
We don't know a lot about Artie.
the man who wrote Blue Rain does not have a bloodthirsty bone in his body.
Or what about serving time?
That might prove that he does, actually. I didn't think
Well.
about that part. It could have been about someone else.
What if all of his jazz songs were bird related? Like every title is like The Sparrow's Midnight.
Or like they're all about bird-related complaints.
Okay.
You know, like
Not
in
enough
true
seed.
blues fashion, or like a bird pooped on him from above.
Oh, you went with that. I went with from the perspective of a bird singing blues songs.
Yeah, if bird.
Well, different
problems birds
albums.
have.
Different albums, different perspectives. Like I ran out of seed.
My nest is made of twigs and dog hair.
A lot of the predators are bigger than me.
Okay, I don't even want to weigh on that. That's fine.
My wife left me and I have to migrate.
Look at my hollow bones.
Oh, it's just the bird blues.
Beaks.
There's no blues in this scene, though.
Oh.
Just synths. Street Hawk is creeping around this Western set. I'm kind of like this, too. It's kind of ominous. He's looking for the assassin guy. The assassin, though, he's hiding, but only for so long until the episode needs to end. So he jumps out, sees Street Hawk, and realizes he's fucked pretty quickly, I think. Street Hawk is a motorcycle with machine guns on it. So, like, even if you're a really good assassin, I don't think you can really do anything.
Here's the thing, though. I feel like Street Hawk's outfit has to be like bulletproof.
It probably
Because the
is.
assassin comes out bang, 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 bang. And yes, everything we've seen from him has been suboptimal for what you want out of an assassin. However, I feel like you'd be able to shoot a not moving target from a few feet away. So I'm assuming the bullets glanced off. I don't know.
I bet you it is supposed to be bulletproof. That's probably revealed in some of the episodes before this that we didn't watch.
I mean, if they can fix a leg, they can make bulletproof.
Maybe that's what they fixed the leg with. Is now I'm going to give you a
Adamantium.
bulletproof leg.
Oh.
Just that one leg, though.
And
Everything else.
The
is
rest
bad.
of you will die if you get shot with bullets.
Adamantium. So yeah, that's how Street Hawk ties into the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Street Hawk's part of Marvel.
Wolverine, X-Men, the Phoenix,
Birds.
Bird,
We haven't talked this much about birds in a while.
Nightcrawler is a worm that birds eat.
I see what you were trying to do there, Brian. Trying to bring Birdman back into our...
Oh, I
I'm
missed
always
it.
trying to do that.
That is sort of on your agenda at all times.
Street Hawk, you know what his agenda is? It's firing bullets right in front of this assassin, but not at him, so he'll just fall over. That works. That's it. The assassin kind of understands. I guess it's, I keep fighting her and I die, or I accept my arrest. So he accepts his arrest and tosses his gun aside. Street Hawk leaves, and he's got to avoid the heat once again because he's a vigilante.
Cold-blooded.
Good job,
No, I
Street
mean
Hawk.
literally cold-blooded, like a snake
Or a bird.
or a bird. I don't think birds are
No, they're
cold-blooded.
not.
No, they are for this intent and purpose.
Are you fucking kidding me? You ever cross a bird?
I try not to.
They are cold-blooded.
I did see a big vulture right down the road the other day. And I don't know, something about seeing vultures that are like 4 feet away and looking at me. I don't like that.
Makes
You're
you feel
fine
like-
as long as you're alive.
Well, that's the thing, is I feel like it makes you think they know something you don't.
Yeah.
Like something ominous this way comes.
As soon as that guy drops dead, I'm going to eat him.
And that's soon. I'm camped out here because I know an anvil's coming. Falling from the air.
You're tying it into Fortune Fire now.
The episode closes pretty much with a public service announcement. You know what? Deborah agreed to do it. After all this, she trusts cops just enough. The PSA is pretty cool. It's really classy. Artie is playing the piano and he's dressed up. Deborah, also super dressed up, walks up. They both say that drugs are for dummies, which is false. They're great.
You know what'll convince kids not to do drugs?
Artie Shane.
Yeah, an old jazz
Yeah.
musician.
Maybe Deborah will give him that, but I guess Artie's just there as like okay, Artie, this one's for you too. And maybe a few seniors who have pill popping addictions, they stop doing that.
What's Artie's last name again? It's
Shank.
not Shank. Shank. Okay.
Like what one would do when they're serving time. That song. Rachel, once the PSA is done filming, she walks up and she thanks the musicians for their time and effort. She's really been lobbying for this PSA the whole time. Jesse runs up, he hugs Deborah, and we find out they do have a date later. She changed her mind even though he's a cop. Must have been because Jesse proved his worth and merit as a human being all along. Jesse drones on and on about how Deborah should love cops. Cops are so great. Deborah says, I already did your promo, leave me alone. Oh, but one other thing.
And by the way, just to set the record straight. It wasn't the cops who saved me. It was Street Hawk.
Oh. Well, how do you know Street Hawk isn't a cop in his real life?
Are you kidding? That guy's too hot. I wouldn't believe that for a second.
I agree.
Again, Deborah rules. She understands everything. Street Hawk, hot. Cops, not. I do like the idea of, though, I don't know for sure, but I got a sense from Who Saved Me that he was too hot to be a police officer.
I like the idea, too, though, of Jesse, considering this entire episode, he has misused Street Hawk for Deborah's personal life. Here, I'm surprised he doesn't just completely violate his agreement not to tell him, be like, well, I'm Street Hawk, just because he wants to impress Deborah so much.
I bet you if he hadn't already secured the date, he would do exactly that. That's the end of the episode, essentially. Jesse says, haha, dumb question I ask, and does a grin with a freeze frame to let us know Jesse knows that he is Street Hawk.
I wish he would have winked at us.
The more you know, and it's another PSA.
Like a little chime sound when he winks, and then it freeze frames on him and the episode ends. Oh, I would have loved that.
Beautiful. He, in this freeze frame, is kind of looking up, and it's this moment that I really realized he is perfect for this role of Street Hawk because he looks like a bird.
He does have that
beak face.
Yeah, he's got a beak nose.
And I thought, by the way, the PSA, I thought that was for us. I didn't realize it was them doing the PSA ad in the story. I thought they were giving us like a G.I. Joe PSA.
That would have been amazing. They tied that into real life and give us the PSA.
That's the thing that 21 Jump Street did do, right? They were trying to do like actual PSAs. So you thought they were going that route.
Makes sense.
Also, Walker in that Christmas episode has that tacked on PSA about presents. I love Walker. So that is it for our first take on Street Hawk. Real quick, anybody have thoughts on this particular episode?
I think this one was better.
I do too.
Spencer, what do you think?
I don't think I can do it yet. Let's save all my comments for the next one because I have thoughts, but they'll spill over.
That is very fair. And I think in overarching thoughts, I'm the same way. I don't want to get too much into it, but I will say this episode moved pretty quick and was full of dumb the whole way through. And just, I don't know, it was surprising in its use of pop music.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway in this one was how did that music get in here?
My first instinct after watching this one was the fascination with the fact that every scene, someone makes a bad decision for making a television show.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a line, maybe it's a reaction, maybe it's just how things occur in the plot of the show. But it just felt very loose. Like whoever made this show slapped it together and said, that'll do. And I think it was better for it. Because if it were more coherent, it wouldn't be as fun.
No, it might have been renewed. But but for our purposes, this is far better. Street Hawk is totally off the wall at times. I think a lot of the attention to detail in the show went more into how does this look?
Yeah.
And they left a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor.
You know, the content. The
actual meat and potatoes.
I do feel
the
like
story, the characters, the
none
acting.
of the characters in this episode did like what their character was supposed to be doing. I think they all did badly at their jobs. Everyone.
I thought
so if Reno Reigns were doing a voiceover, they wouldn't say
he wouldn't
have
have anything to do with this.
We talked about this earlier, but Deborah was the most interesting character, I think, just because she did buck some action show stereotypes, which gave her character the illusion of depth. But this is the only time we'll see her. Next week, we're back for season 1, episode 7. A couple episodes later, Chinatown Memories. But for now, check out Bootu Inc. on YouTube. We've been, Van has been putting our Boob Tube Boys episodes up there. People are watching them. Check that out. Go to bootuinc.com, our website, for gifs of shows with funny little comments and plenty more. Anyone else have anything they'd like to promote or just say?
Yeah, I'll tell you, just go ahead and go to iTunes and give us 5 stars. 6 if they let you.
What would they have to do if they do that?
Well, I mean, they got to get tattoos, or we have to get tattoos or something.
Street Hawk or something?
I mean, I guess I'll get a Street Hawk tattoo.
I like the idea that if they make
They
a
have to
review,
then get a
they have to
tattoo.
get a tattoo of Street Hawk.
I got confused. There was someone gets a tattoo when we get a 5-star
You're like
review.
Oprah. You get a tattoo, and you get a tattoo.
I like the incentive being, though, if you leave us a review, you can, on your own dime, go out and get your own tattoo of whatever you want.
Yeah, we can't pay for that.
But otherwise, you can't do that. You have to give us a review to be able to get a tattoo. So if you're out there and you're thinking about getting some ink, give us some ink in the press way, positive words.
Don't put up a stink. Give us some ink.
And I'm not talking about the ink show in the 90s with Ted Danson and Mary Steenburgen either.
Or the ink from the squids in Squid Game.
No, not talking about that at all. But we have to go for now. We'll be back in a week, but for now, we've got to go ride Street Hawk.